Hey there YouTube, Big Juicy here. Gonna do a tutorial video today for the faction plugin and how it works. This tutorial is specifically for the main server I play, calmarcraft.com. So if this doesn't line up exactly with the plugin you use on your server, I apologize. However, again, as I have stated, this video is specifically for calmarcraft.com. So, alright, let's get right into it. The /f command is really the base command for this project, for this plugin. So /f, which is short for /f help, they do the same thing, as you can see, is where you should start with this command, or with this plugin. And then I'm going to go through, I'm not going to do every single one of these because they're not all extremely relevant. The first one that's relevant is /f space f. Now what that does is it tells you the faction information for the player. When you do it with no name, so for instance the one I just did, which is /f space f, that is for yourself. I am not in a faction. I am in the per default I'm in the wilderness faction. So I am factionless. But if I were to do, for instance, /f space f microhertz, it shows me she is in the faction OWR. And then it also shows me they have two people online, Microhertz and 2 Chains, and one person offline, Slacker Gaming. The XX stands for the leader or the owner of the faction. So Slacker Gaming is the owner, the X stands for an officer in the faction, and the minus stands for a recruit. Now if I do f space Shizery, it shows me her faction. She is currently in red. By the way, I'm going to point out red means enemies. She is enemies with the wilderness, which I don't know why you'd ever be enemies with the wilderness, but she is. So, like I said, it shows the followers offline, which she has 9 followers offline, and then it shows the followers online. Now, the plus symbol, which was not in the last faction we looked at, means that they are a member. So this will decide what permissions you have in the faction. For instance, the owner can do anything and has access to all commands in the faction. The officer has limited access. They cannot make other people officers, however they can invite, promote, and do many other things. So, and the member can just open chests and open doors. The recruit, I think, can only open doors. So the recruit is extremely limited. So it's good to know. Now, the next one, /f space p, is looking at a player and a player's information. So their normal faction information would show up here. Again, I am not in a faction, so it doesn't show up here. But player me, my power is 10 over 10. I gain 2 power per hour, and I lose 3.5 power on death. Now, on calmarcraft.com, and specifically on calmarcraft.com, you can go negative 10 power. So you can have a total of negative 10 power. And that is important coming up. I will show you why. So, now, let's do this to a player who's actually in a faction. Let's use our earlier example of Microhertz. As you can see, Microhertz's power, right here, Microhertz's power is 5.57 over 10, or of 10. Her max power is 10. The gain and loss rates are going to be the same for everyone, most likely, unless your server offers some sort of perk to this for being a donator. So 2 and then negative 3.5. Again, there is that faction information, OWR, and that's her rank. She's an officer in OWR. So, now let's try another person, F space P space Hawks, 12020. Okay, so Hawks has 15 over 15. This manually granted power boost comes from being a donator. So Hawks is a donator. He is the leader of Overwatch. And again, the gain and death, or the power per hour and power per death rates are the same. So those are 3 very basic commands that not a lot of players know. It's very important. You use this information. It's very important when it comes to rating the power information, and I'll show you why. So next we're going to move on to how to create a faction. Okay, the command to create a faction is, and I'm going to type in fhelp to see it on the list, help 2, and then f help 3, and f help 4, f help 5, so on and so forth, 2 of 5. F create, and then the name. So that would go /f space create, and then let's do tut for tutorial. And then it wants you to enter a description. So f/desk space YouTube is lame. Okay, so that's our description. Now, if I were to invite someone to my faction, I would type in this command, f_invite, and then their name. Now, I don't have anybody. I'm going to send an invite to Microhertz, but she's not going to accept it because she's in her own faction. So f_invite Microhertz, and then as you can see, it was invited, but she's not going to accept that, like I said, because she's in her own faction and she doesn't need to be in mine. So let's say you don't want, like, let's say I typed the wrong name. You can just do F and you can hit up. So let's say I wanted Microhertz with an S instead of with a Z. So you can revoke it by typing the exact same thing. As you can see, that invitation was now revoked. So she's no longer got an invitation to my faction. Now, if Microhertz wanted to join my faction, she would type fjoin tut. So, if she wanted to accept that invite. So, I believe you can also type f/accept or something like that, but it's just safer to do /f join and then the faction name, because you may have more than one pending invite. I don't know if you can have more than one pending invite, but I don't like to take that risk. Now, we're going to go through some claiming of land and setting home. First, before you claim land, you might want to check out who's around you, who's around. So one way to do that is simply to walk. And as you can see, if you're looking at my chat box, there it is. OWR pops up in the chat box like this. That means OWR owns the land I'm on. So, well, that's pretty cool, and I'm glad it pops up, but, I mean, I can't see the border of it. So, how would I know? Because as you can see, I'm going into the wilderness. So, the way to do that is /f space map or fmap. Now, this map is kind of confusing. The chunk you're on is this chunk right here. So this isn't going to have a symbol because that's your plus. So the wilderness owns that. All of the dashes are owned by the wilderness. Now down here is your key. So the / is owned by OWR. So I can't claim that unless I overpower them, which I'll show you in a little bit. I'm facing south. The red is I'm facing south. So this is a nice compass for you, which is nice in case you don't know how the F3 button works, or if you're doing a video and don't want anybody to see your coordinates. You know, either way. So, next, we're going to claim some land next to OWR. And now I'm in OWR right now. How do I tell where this chunk is? Because the F map, each of these is representing one chunk. A chunk is a 16 by 16 chunk of land. It's a square, and it goes from bedrock to the build limit. So from 0 to 256, which is the build limit. And so that's one chunk. So to see where the chunk ends, so that I can see where I want to go build, I type in /c chunk. Now if I move, these will go away. Like if I were to take a step forward, these would disappear. So this is where this chunk ends. So this is where OWR's land ends. So now I'm just going to walk to the end of it. It's going to freeze a little bit for a second. Now I'm in the wilderness, and I'm going to do /f space claim to claim this land. So I did buy world and then coordinates, from the wilderness. Now, a very important part of your faction is the F home, or the faction home, which is set by doing /f space sethome, or f set home. So we're going to bam f set home. And then it says, and this broadcasts to your whole faction, Sir Big Juicy set home for your faction. You can now use /f home. So let's go over here. Alright, and do /f home. It takes 10 seconds. In our server, again on CalMarcraft, it takes 10 seconds. It may take more in your server depending on how the plugin has been edited by your server admin. There are some commands I'm not going to go over, so let's look them up in the list. I'm not going to enter, I should say. For instance, fopen toggles your invitation required to join to yes or no. I always have my invitation on yes, meaning you have to be invited to join my faction. I do not ever recommend anyone having an open faction. F invite, we already went through. F kick. To kick a player from a faction, you just type /F space KSK and then their name, whatever that might be. As you can see, that's right here, and then F kick from faction. F title just gives them a title, for instance, Warmonger or Warlord or Potion Brewer. On Kalmarcraft, everyone enters a faction as a recruit, which, as I'd already explained, recruits can't do anything. So if you want people to be able to open chests in your faction land, specifically your faction members, you need to promote them to member status. So /F promote is how you do that. Alright, now let's go to F help 3. Okay, now F demote is the opposite of F promote. I don't use this much because if I'm demoting you, you're probably getting kicked from my faction. That's just how it is. F officer makes a player an officer. F leader makes a player a leader. We have money disabled for factions because players have money, so we just decided, in our server we're not going to have F money. But if that were active in your server, /F money would be the command. And then /FC or SC or /FC chunk is to see the chunk you stand, and I've already done that one. F claim I just went through. Now to unclaim the land, so let's say I don't want it anymore, I can unclaim, or I can unclaim all. Unclaim all is dangerous unless you absolutely are sure you don't want any of the chunks you have claimed anymore. So, help 4. Next we're going to talk about faction relationships. So, microhertz in OWR, if I do /FF to see my faction, I have no allies, I have no enemies, I'm in truce with the war zone and the safe zone. So microhertz cannot possibly be in my ally or in my safe zone. So I'm going to go up to her and hit her and see what happens. So she takes damage because she's not truced, she's not an ally. And if she hits me, I take damage from that. I just have full dia on. So, now, let's do /F ally OWR, which we've already established as her faction twice, I think. So now, it says OWR, we're informed that you wish to be an ally faction. She has to do /F ally TUT or TUT to ally in order for us to be allied. Simply sending an alliance request to a faction does not make them an ally. They have to accept it using that /F space ally space your faction name. So, and there you can see she accepted it, so OWR is now an allied faction. So now I'm going to try and hit her. You cannot hurt your allies. That's pretty self-explanatory, but some people don't understand that. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, by the way, we are in the wilderness currently. I want to make sure everybody knows that. We are in the wilderness. So I'm going to head to her land. Okay? So in her land, I can build. Do you see that? I can build in OWR's land now because they are allies. I'm in the wilderness, but here I'm in OWR. So I can build whatever I want to build in her land. So let's go /F truce. Well, that's spelled wrong. Truce. If I can remember how to spell OWR. Now, because I'm already in an alliance with her, and an alliance is a higher faction relationship than a truce is, it automatically lowered the relationship to truce. Because if I don't want her as an ally anymore, it just automatically drops down. So both people have to agree on at least one relationship. So since she already agreed to be an ally, and I want to go down to a truce, it automatically takes it down to a truce, because ally is higher than truce, and she already agreed to that. So if I hit her, she seems to be very bored right now. If I hit her, as you can see, it says you can't hurt players in truce with you, and if she hits me, the same thing would happen. So let's go over to her land now that we're truced, and let's see what happens. And as you can see, it popped up that I'm in her land. And OWR does not allow you to edit terrain. So let's say I don't really like OWR anymore, and I want to make her make OWR a neutral faction. All I have to do is just type F neutral OWR. Okay, and then it goes OWR is now a neutral faction. Again, OWR already agreed to an alliance, so everything under an alliance is okay. So now, if I hit her, because she's neutral, she will take damage again. Neutral is the default relationship with all factions. So let's go on her land, and let's see if I can place blocks. I cannot place blocks. Now, another thing to note is while I'm on her land, I cannot hurt her unless I enemy them. Now, if I go onto my land, let's go onto my land, and she cannot hurt me. Now, look at this message when she hits me. See how it says OWR megahertz tried to hurt you? When you're on your land and they're not enemied, if they try and hurt you, it will tell you that that they're trying to hurt you. So the game will let you know. So, okay, now let's go back onto her land and let's enemy her. F enemy OWR. Now, OWR is now an enemy faction. Let's see if I can edit. Nope, I still can't edit. Now, this is different per server. Again, this is specific to CalMarcraft.com. But now I can hit her on her land. And if she tries to hit me, obviously she can hit me. She could hit me on her land before. Now, but let's try and go home on her land. Home is blocked in enemy territory. Now let's try spawn. Spawn is also blocked in enemy territory. Now let's try F home. You cannot teleport to your faction home while an enemy is within 32 blocks of you. So, it's legal in the territory, but not legal if the people are within 32 blocks. It's very important to note that on our server, within 32 blocks of you, whenever there's an enemy within 32 blocks of you, you cannot teleport. It's a very important thing to know because you can't run away from your enemies if you're in their base raiding them. Okay, let's set up a mock raid. Now, how I personally decide if someone's raidable is I do /F space F OWR or whoever I want to raid. So if I wanted to raid Fluffy Bunnies, I would do that, but there's nobody named Fluffy Bunnies on our server. So /F OWR, and then I can see that OWR has 2 members online, which is important because I'll tell you why in a second. And they have 8 land and 18 power. Now, if their land exceeds their power, they're raidable. So I'm going to go down here to microhertz and check her with /F space P microhertz. Now, microhertz has 6.23 power. Again, I mentioned earlier that the -5 is the lowest a person's power can go. So her power, she's contributing 6 power to the faction, but I can use that -5 to my advantage to push this down to 7 land. Because this is just a tutorial and it does take so long to gain power, I'm not going to kill her down to -5 power because that would just be rude. But if I wanted to raid this faction, I would have to kill her a total of 10 power, so 3 times. I would have to kill her 3 times, and this faction would be raidable with 1 land. Moving forward, assuming that I killed microhertz 3 times and dropped her power to -5, I would move into OWR's claimed territory, or one of their chunks that they have claimed, and I would type /F unclaim. This would make it so that the land reverts to the wilderness. Now, they are strong enough to keep it because I didn't kill her. Now, the other option for taking land from your enemies is the /F claim option. Now, this is only good in certain scenarios. And I say that because I don't do /F claim if, for instance, none of the people are online and their power is just, too low. I do /F claim if they are online and they have like a chest room and I just want to run in there and claim the chests so that they can't get into them anymore, so that they can't steal their good stuff. Because sometimes the enemy factions don't just, try and fight back. They actually try and steal their stuff from you. Like, take their stuff and save as much as they can before you kill them. So, that's good for people who are trying to run away from you, is the /F claim. Because then they can't open their chests, and because if you enemy them first, they can't teleport away, so you can kill them and take whatever they're carrying. So /F claim is good if you're fighting a faction that's not actually trying to fight you and is trying to run. Other than that, the last command is, well, there's two commands that I'm going to show you. F leader, which would make another person, Jack, but there's no Jack, would make another person the leader of my faction. They have to be in my faction for me to do that. As you can see, there is no Jack. So I can do F disband. And I'm going to do that because I just made this faction for this video. So /F disband does disband the faction. And now I can do /FP, and it will show that I am not in a faction. Alright guys, I hope this tutorial helps. I want to say thank you to Microhertz for helping me out with this. She's been very patient. We've had to stop recording many times because of problems we've had with people on the server or people interrupting us on Skype. I will catch you guys later. I'm going to have another Hexit Let's Play episode up soon, probably by Tuesday. I might make some more tutorial videos depending on how much everyone likes this one. So, alright, this is Juicy. I'm out of here.